There is a particular silence that surrounds a seed under the soil. No noise of growing, no proof of life, no sign that anything is happening at all. And then one morning, without anyone witnessing the moment, a green blade pushes up through the dirt. That same silence is the silence around your trust in me right now. And the green blade is closer than you think. Sit closer to me. In the next few minutes, while these words reach your ear, allow me to show you why the trust that has been looking too small to matter to you is actually the only kind that grows. And allow me to read you a few lines I once spoke on a hillside about a kingdom that grows in the dark. Remain here. Nothing about this hour is rushed. Hear what I am about to say, not only with the ears, but with the soil under your ribs. The seed is already in you. The growing is already happening. You cannot see it because growth happens underground first. That is my pattern. That has always been my pattern. Lean in. Let me explain. You have been carrying a quiet shame about the size of your belief for a while now. Not the kind of shame that announces itself. The kind that lives behind the breastbone, surfacing only when someone in the room speaks of God with a confident voice you cannot match. A small voice has been telling you that real believers do not have your kind of doubts. That if your trust were larger, the answer would already be visible. That you must be doing something wrong because other people seem to walk through their seasons with a certainty you have been searching for in yourself and not finding. Every visit from that small voice leaves a thinner version of you, standing where the full version used to be. Permit me to say plainly that the small voice is wrong. Belief was never measured by volume. Belief was never measured by certainty. Belief was measured by a single act. The scattering of a kernel onto ground you cannot fully see. And by that measure, you have been planting longer than you have given yourself credit for. Right here is where I find you. In the actual room your body is in. Perhaps a kitchen holding a lukewarm cup. Perhaps a car in a parking lot before whatever comes next. Perhaps a bed that has not been kind to you this week. Perhaps a bench in a corner you slipped into because you needed somewhere quiet. None of those rooms hides you from me. A widow has prayed the same sentence over a grown son for 19 years and has begun to wonder whether the prayer ever left the ceiling. 3 streets over, a young father drops one tired ask into the dark each night and is no longer sure anyone is collecting them. A woman whose body has been asking her to keep believing through a slow diagnosis has watched the asking get harder than the diagnosis. A teenager prays in a whisper because her household does not pray out loud, and she has begun to think her whisper is too quiet to count. Your sister gave up asking how your prayer life was going because the question got awkward. Your morning conversation with me has grown briefer, not because the love left, but because the kernel feels like it must have rotted by now. None of that has been invisible. Every shortened prayer was counted at my side. Every whispered ask was logged in heaven the same way a shouted one would have been. I have never measured a prayer by its decibel. No frustration rises in me about how small your trust has been looking to you. The opposite rises. Tenderness rises. Smallness is exactly the size the parable was about. Smallness is the qualification, not the disqualification. A seed is small. That is what makes it a seed. A boulder cannot be planted. Only the small thing goes into the ground. Only the small thing rises into something else. Beneath this shame lies more than the obvious part. A quiet comparison has been riding alongside it. A friend whose belief looks unshakable on social media. A cousin who quotes scripture at the dinner table with a confidence you envy and dread in the same breath. A coworker who has been praying through their situation with a calm you cannot manufacture. Each of those quiet comparisons adds a small weight to the already tired place inside you that has been trying to keep believing. None of them is the truth about what is happening in you. Surface confidence in another person is not a measurement of my nearness to them. It is only a measurement of how loudly they have learned to perform. Many of those loud believers have less in the ground than you do. Loudness was never the harvest. Loudness was only the noise. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just once, slowly. Then again. Then a third time. Notice the rhythm. An in-breath is the asking. An out-breath is the letting go. Most of you have been doing only the in-breath of trust, gripping, asking, gripping again, asking again, and forgetting that belief was always meant to include an exhale. Exhaling is the part where you trust that the kernel is doing what kernels do. Exhaling is the part where you stop digging the seed up to check on it. Let the next out-breath be longer than the in-breath. That long exhale is itself a form of belief, and it lands in heaven exactly as fully as the loudest hallelujah ever has. You did not invent this fear of having too small a trust. You inherited it. You inherited it the first time a religious teacher told you that doubt was the opposite of belief. And so you tried for years to stop doubting and could not, and concluded that you must not be one of his. You inherited it the morning a parent told you to pray harder for a thing that did not arrive, and the not arriving felt like a verdict on your praying. You inherited it the season a friend recovered from a hardship and told you it was because their belief was strong, and you walked away wondering what was missing in yours. You inherited it the night you watched a healing service on a screen and felt a flicker of cynicism rise, and then immediately felt guilty about the cynicism, and stacked the guilt on top of the belief you were already trying to grow. No injury on the place where trust was supposed to live freely in you came from my hand. Yet I notice the injury, and I understand what touches it. And I am the kind of teacher who kneels beside a wound, not the kind who presses on it to see how loud it can be made to cry. Let me stand between you and a sound that has been speaking on my behalf without my approval. One sound told you belief is loud certainty. Another sound told you doubt is the enemy of trust. A third told you the saints with the most fruit are those who never wavered. None of these sounds came out of my mouth. Not one of them has ever come out of my mouth. Speech that originates with me does not shame the quiet asker. Speech from me honors the quiet asker. An asker who keeps coming back with a small, trembling sentence has done more honest praying in a month than a loud orator does in a year. Trembling does not make a prayer less. Trembling makes a prayer more, because it means the asker had to overcome something to ask at all. Long ago in your formation, an idea took root in you that real belief looks like loud certainty, that genuine trust is the kind that never wavers, that whenever you cannot see the answer forming, you must not be believing hard enough. That spiritual maturity gets measured by how confident your voice sounds when you pray out loud in a group. That a mature believer never asks the same prayer twice, because asking twice means you did not trust me to hear it the first time. That a real Christian does not feel the heaviness of waiting, because real trust makes the waiting effortless. None of that is what I have ever taught. None of that has ever been what I have taught. This picture of belief lodged inside your ribcage today, confident voice, steady gaze, never wavering heart, a believer who never asks twice, got sketched by fingers that were never mine. Some of those fingers belonged to people who cared about you and were forwarding what had been taught to them. Other fingers belong to teachers who weaponize the picture of strong belief. So you would keep striving, without ever feeling like you had arrived. Either source produced the same falsified portrait. Put it down for a minute. Stand it against the wall behind you, while I describe what trust actually looks like once you stop trying to perform it for the room. Real belief is the size of a kernel. That measurement is mine, not borrowed from elsewhere. 12 of my closest companions once asked me to increase their faith. They wanted the loud kind, the visible kind, the kind that would impress the crowd, and I told them they only needed a mustard seed's worth. Why a mustard seed? Because that was the smallest seed they could imagine. My answer was not, "If only your trust were a little bigger." My answer was, "The smallest size is enough." Smallness has always been enough. Belief is not a feeling you generate to convince me to act. Belief is the small act of putting a kernel into the ground. A kernel itself is the prayer. Ground itself is your real life. Growing is my work. You were never supposed to be in charge of the growing. You only had to scatter. A quiet lie gets told inside chests like yours, and it sounds like this. If my trust were stronger, the answer would already be here. A lie says the delay is the diagnosis. A lie says the silence is the verdict. A lie says you must be doing belief wrong because believers with proper trust get their results faster. That lie has cost you years of sleep. Delay is not the diagnosis. Silence is not the verdict. Delay is the room where the kernel is doing what kernels do. Silence is the soil keeping the work covered until the work is ready to come up. Receive this image now. Picture a sentence I once spoke aloud to a crowd of farmers and fishermen sitting on an open hillside. Not a polished room, just grass. People deeply familiar with how slow seeds grow because planting is their life. Mothers with babies on their hips. Old men with backs bent from 1,000 harvests. Young ones holding a small inherited plot, terrified about what to do with it. Workers worn by labor, widows. A few quietly hungry for any word that might actually feed them. I looked at them. I saw the kind of belief they had. Not loud, not articulate, not theologically tidy. The kind a tired farmer carries when he scatters a handful of grain into a field he is not sure will produce. The kind a fisherman carries when he lowers a net into water that has been empty all night. That is the kind of trust I came to honor. I did not come for the impressive talkers in the courtyards of the city. I came for the ones with dirt under their fingernails, who still believed, against everything they had seen, that something might grow. A story arrived in their ears that day. It was small, like a kernel itself. It was not a sermon about how to have bigger belief. It was a description of what my kingdom is actually like. And the description was so quiet that most of them probably walked home not yet realizing what they had been handed. Here's what I said. Mark, chapter 4, verses 26 through 28. The kingdom of God is as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows, he knows not how. The earth produces by itself, first the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. Read those lines slowly with me. More lives in them than the speed of a normal reading will let you see. A man should scatter seed. Look at the verb, scatter. Not plant in neat rows, not bury at precisely measured depths, not calibrate every grain. Scatter. Trust that I am asking you for is the trust of scattering. Throwing a small handful into a field you cannot fully understand. You do not have to know which kernel will land where. You do not have to know which one will rise first. You only have to scatter what you have. Smallness of the handful is not the failure. Scattering itself is the belief. Then notice what I said next. He sleeps and rises night and day. Hear that. A farmer goes on with his life. He sleeps, he rises, he eats, he works, he laughs, he grieves. He does not stand over the field at 3 a.m. demanding that the kernel perform. He does not refuse to sleep until the blade comes up. He does not measure his faithfulness by how many hours he spends staring at the dirt. He scatters, and he goes on living. That is your assignment too. Scatter the small prayer, and then go on living. Growing does not require your supervision. A seed sprouts and grows. Notice the actor in that sentence. A seed, not a farmer. A seed itself does the sprouting. A seed itself does the growing. You have been trying to do the growing on the kernel's behalf for years. You have been trying to make your trust bigger, your prayers more eloquent, your belief more impressive, as if the seed needed your help to become a plant. A seed does not need your help. A seed has the whole plant inside it already, waiting for the conditions it was made for. Your job was the scattering. Growing was always mine. He knows not how. Read that one twice. A farmer does not know how a seed grows. He does not understand the biology. He does not see the chemistry. He cannot watch the cells dividing. And yet growing happens. Belief is not understanding the how. Belief is trusting that the how is being handled by someone who does understand. That whole load of needing to understand can come off your shoulders right now. You were never supposed to be the explainer. You were only ever supposed to be the one who scattered. Earth produces by itself. Look at that phrase. Earth, not the farmer, not the strength of the believer. Earth itself, working under the surface, in the dark, with no audience, produces. Earth in this picture is my faithfulness, working in the underground of your circumstance, producing what you cannot yet see. You have been so focused on the surface that you have missed what is happening in the soil. Soil is busy. Soil has been busy this whole time. Your prayer has not been ignored. Your prayer has been buried, which is exactly what a prayer needs to do before it becomes a harvest. First the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. Here are the stages. Growth is not one moment. Growth is a sequence. A blade first, a small green sign that something is moving under the surface. Then an ear, a structure that will eventually hold the grain. Then the full grain, a harvest itself. 3 stages in order, with time between them. Most of you have been demanding the full grain on the day you scattered the kernel. A blade is also a yes. An ear is also a yes. Stages are not delays. Stages are the answer in slow motion. Right now, in your life, you are probably somewhere between the blade and the ear, and you have been calling it nothing. It is not nothing. It is the middle of the parable. As I once said through one of my old prophets, a word I send out from my mouth does not return to me empty. It accomplishes what I sent it for, in the time I sent it for. Let that quiet promise sit alongside the parable. A kernel that left my hand and entered your life has not been wasted. Grain is forming, even on the days when the field looks bare, especially on those days. A quiet truth lives inside the phrase, "He knows not how." Not knowing is permitted. Not knowing is even honored. Some of the most faithful believers I have ever raised up could not explain what I was doing in their lives while I was doing it. They only knew they had scattered, and I had not gone away, and something was moving even when nothing was visible. You do not need a complete theology of how this season works in order to trust the one in charge of it. You only need to keep showing up at the field with whatever small handful you still have. Look back at the promise I made when this short message began. I told you I would show you why the trust that has been looking so small to your own eye is actually the only kind that grows. Here is the answer. Because growing is reserved for the small. Because the kingdom comes through scattering, not through performance. Because the kernel you have been embarrassed about, the trembling prayer, the short ask, the half whisper into the dark, is exactly the size the parable was about. Your seed has been in the ground all this time. Earth has been working. A blade is on its way. An ear will follow. Full grain will follow that. And one morning, when you have stopped checking, you will look at your life and notice that something has grown that you did not grow. Take then this small practice into the rhythm of the coming days. Whenever the shame about the size of your belief shows up next, and it will show up because the lie about needing big belief has been preached to you many times, pause and pose one simple question to yourself. Have I scattered the seed? Not, have I made it grow? Not, have I produced the harvest? Just, have I scattered? If the answer is yes, the rest is my job, not yours. If the answer is no, scatter one now. A whispered sentence into a quiet kitchen counts. A single word lifted from the driver's seat counts. A breath sent upward at the red light counts. Size of the kernel has never been the issue. Scattering is what makes you a planter. Say your name once in whatever volume feels possible. Speak it gently into the room. After your name, add this sentence in the same voice. I have scattered the seed. That is it. That is the whole second beat of the practice. Do not improvise around it. Do not soften it into something more comfortable. Speak your name. Speak the sentence. Let your own ear hear that you are a person who has done the small thing belief requires. No transformation will arrive on attempt number 1. Even by the 10th attempt, the interchange may be invisible. A field called barren for years does not begin looking different in an afternoon. Yet around the 30th attempt, register the shift. The comparison voice will have lost some of its bite. Around the 50th, register the further shift. You will catch yourself praying without rehearsing whether the prayer was good enough. Around the 100th, glance at the field of your life and see a blade you had not noticed before, small, green, undeniable, and grasp that the kernel has been working the whole time. Something else is worth noticing as the weeks pass. Your prayer will begin to feel less like an audition and more like a scattering. Less like a performance for an audience, and more like the small daily act of a farmer who has stopped checking on the kernel every hour. You will pray and then go make breakfast. You will pray and then go to work. You will pray and then sleep. Trust will be in the going as much as in the praying. Going itself will become a form of belief, because going says, I scattered. Now you grow. I am not going to dig it up to see. If something here is settling into the soil of you, leave the word seed in the comments as a small yes to your own scattering. And while you are there, you will find 7 letters waiting for you in the pinned comment above, 1 for each of the next 7 mornings. Take them. If you have prayed for years for the same thing and have begun to believe the kernel must have rotted, hear me. Kernels do not rot in my field. They wait. Waiting is not the rot. Waiting is the underground. Some of my harvests have taken 30 years to come up. Some have taken 50. A faithful woman in my oldest pages held on to a promise about a son for a quarter of a century and finally held that son in her arms. A seed does not rot. Ground only prepares the room for the size of the harvest I have in mind. Bring the prayer again. Scatter again. A field has not been abandoned. A farmer has not gone home. When you have so little belief in your hand that you are not even sure it qualifies as belief, hear me. Size of the kernel is not the qualification. Willingness to put it in the ground is. A mustard seed was my example precisely because it was the smallest one in the room. I did not pick a coconut. I did not pick an acorn. I picked the smallest seed anyone present could imagine. And I said, even that is enough. Whatever you have in your hand right now is enough. A handful does not have to be impressive. A handful has to be scattered. Should you find yourself comparing your trust to the loud believers on the screens of your phone, set the phone face down for the rest of this message. Loud ones are not your standard. Many of them are scattering nothing, only making noise about scattering. Some of the quietest believers I have ever known have had the deepest fields. Measure of your belief is not the volume of your prayer. Measure of your belief is whether the kernel left your hand at all. If it did, you are a planter, and planters do not need to compare their fields to the fields they cannot actually see. Maybe you have been bruised by a previous harvest that did not come up the way you expected. Hear this also. A harvest that disappointed you was not the end of the field. Sometimes I let one crop fail in a place because I was preparing the soil for something I could not plant while the wrong thing was still growing there. Bring the kernel again. Ground is not cursed. Ground is being rotated the way every good farmer rotates the soil he loves. What grows next will be better suited to who you have become through the season of the disappointing crop. I have not wasted that season. I never waste a season. Perhaps you are a parent watching a child whose belief looks smaller than yours. Hear this too. Your job is not to make the kernel in their hand bigger. Your job is to keep scattering your own, where they can see you do it. They will learn to scatter from watching you scatter. A child has never been raised into belief by being lectured about belief. A child has been raised into belief by living near a parent whose hands kept opening over the field. Open your hands. Let them watch. Growing in them is my job. And if you are in a season of abundance and have stopped paying attention to the kernel because the field looks full, hear this last word. Abundance is its own kind of soil with its own kind of risk. Danger in an abundant season is to assume that the growing is over and to stop scattering. Stop scattering and the field begins to dry, even in the middle of abundance. Keep your hands open. Keep your small daily prayer going. A kernel is not for desperate seasons only. A kernel is for every season, because the kingdom is always being grown. Hear the mantra one more time, the way a friend says a true thing on the way out the door. The seed is already in you. The growing is already happening. Carry that with you into the rest of this week, the way a farmer carries a sense of the field in his bones. Without checking, without measuring, without digging it up. Walking and trusting and breathing and going on with an ordinary day. Because growing is happening underground, where it has always happened. And one morning, you will see the blade. When the blade does break through, do not be surprised at how small it looks. Most of what I do in a soul begins as a small green thing easy to overlook. Pay attention to the small green thing. Honor it. Do not demand the harvest before its hour. A blade is enough proof that the underground was working. A blade is enough evidence that your scattering was real. A blade is the first answer to a prayer you had begun to think that nothing would ever answer. And from that blade, in the unhurried timing of my field, the full grain will come. Amen. Should today's words have found something in the soil of you, 7 free letters are waiting in the pinned comment below. 1 per morning across the coming week, dropped into your inbox the instant a small yes opens the latch. Receive them. Pass this along to someone whose belief has been looking too small to them lately. Tap subscribe so tomorrow's word lands in your feed before the doubt arrives first. This field was never one you were meant to walk alone.